Welcome, everyone. Today is July 25th, 2024, and this is an Oracle Apex Office Hours. Today, we're going to talk about what's new in Apex 24.1, and this is part 4, and it's a 4-part series. That's the end of the series. We have the previous 3 parts of the series already recorded and already up and ready for viewing on the Apex Office Hours website. Before we get started, we have some announcements and some updates. So if you haven't heard, Apex To Go is now released as a new sample app available in the Apex gallery. So this is at a short link, apex.oracle.com/go/Apex To Go. It's a perfect example of doing mobile right with Apex in a way that is natural for the actual platform to be able to deliver apps quickly and easily with a lot of mobile-centric features. Above and beyond just taking an app and expecting it to be responsive and working on mobile, this just does it in a way that is just natural for what everybody wants and expects out of a mobile app. So it's definitely worth taking a look and seeing how that particular app works. Of course, since it's a sample app, you can use Builder and go behind the scenes and see how every part of it was put together and apply it to your own production applications as you build them out. So we have upcoming conferences. If you hadn't noticed, I just came back from Oracle, the Oracle Apex conference at Kscope in Nashville. It was an exciting time. We had a bunch of great feedback from everything that we offered in the boot camp. We had a lot of great sessions. I did a couple sessions, but the team just overall had a great time connecting with the community at large, and we're just excited to be able to continue to do it over and over again, and can't wait to see everyone next year. But the actual upcoming conferences are the OCIATRA 2024 going on this week currently. And then we have the Latin America Oracle User Community Tour that kicks off on August 2nd. I will be in Mexico, Chile, and Brazil delivering sessions there. But there are 7 other cities that some other members of the greater community and Oracle Aces that will be attending, offering sessions as well. And then at the end of August is the Oracle Apex Nordic Tour over in Finland, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. And that's going to be another exciting time over there in Europe to talk about Apex with the whole community over there. For more on events, go to apex.oracle.com/go/events. So upcoming conferences, we have Oracle Cloud World in September. It's going to be an exciting time back in Las Vegas where we connect with all kinds of different industry experts and obviously customers alike and partners and talk about what Apex can do with AI these days and all the new features of Apex 24.1. We'll have a demo booth and we'll be doing a number of sessions from the Apex team there at that particular conference. We look forward to seeing you there as well. So you can replay the previous office hours, as I mentioned. The past 3 of the 4-part series are already available, edited and published and ready to go. You can subscribe to this particular office hour session and all the others. We're going to have other good content coming up, probably at a monthly cadence. But if you go to apex.oracle.com/office hours, you can subscribe and be part of this particular live broadcast every time we do it, usually on a Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And of course, all the past recordings are available there as well. We have a new blog post involving implementing semantic search in Oracle Apex using AI vector search in Oracle Database 23 AI. It's a very exciting new feature, and when it combines with the features that are available in Apex 24.1, it works extremely well, and it's just an extremely exciting thing for developers to be able to offer to users in your solutions. Definitely want to check that out, as well as all the other great blog posts. We have a lot of new stuff that has to do with AI, and based on the other 3 sessions we've had here in the Apex Office Hours series for Apex 24.1. So it's worth taking a look at blogs.oracle.com/apex for more. We also have an updated learning path with empowering low-code apps with AI, so you can learn the latest advancements of AI in Apex and do the hands-on labs and practice along with the training videos. You can then earn an Apex and AI Champion badge on completion. So enroll for free today at Oracle University from this URL at apex.oracle.com/go/AI-learn. Also, going on today in just a few hours' time, the Oracle Apex Office Hours Espanol with Miguel Sanchez. Be sure to check that out if Spanish is your native language and you like learning more from some of the people that live locally or know your language better than someone like me, because you don't want me talking in Spanish. I definitely can't do a good job in that regard. But of course, Miguel's going to do a great job. He's very knowledgeable and passionate about Apex as well. And that other office hours is going to be talking about REST with ORDs. So it's just great to be able to know that you have other office hours available in your local language or your language of choice, perhaps around the globe. We have several that go on throughout the quarters of the year that cater to different languages. Now, here in this particular office hours, If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature of Zoom. Don't ask questions in chat. It usually moves too quick. It's not conducive for us to spend good time to answer those questions. Use the Q&A feature. So the whole team that's on here on the panel is here to answer those questions, and you must use the Q&A feature of Zoom for the best results. Also, if your question requires a deep understanding, please create a new post on the Apex forum. We all on the team here get those email notifications when you create a new post, and we'll be able to answer your question there in the forum. If not, also get other good answers from other community members. The point is, try to keep your questions that come in today specific to the content that's being presented by the presenters. So this 4-part series is now on part 4. We're going to talk today about generating PDF documents, the date picker support, and the REST source infrastructure. And this is all coming from the developers of those said features themselves. So today we have Menno, we have Ronnie, and Carsten, and respectively, they're going to speak about the features that they built into Apex 24.1. So coming up next is going to be Menno talking about generating PDF documents using the natively integrated document generator service. So I welcome Menno. I'll stop sharing here.
All right. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining today. My name is Menno from the Oracle Apex team. And indeed, I'm going to talk about a new feature in 24.1, which is the integration with the document generator function. And if you've never heard of it, this is an OCI function that is capable of generating PDFs, documents based on Office templates, and JSON data. So because this is running on OCI, you should know that it does require a paid account on the Oracle Cloud. So this is the page we have on the Oracle website about cloud functions. You will notice that they are serverless and that you don't need it to manage the infrastructure. While it is paid, and that's a very important thing, the cost is very, very low. So if I scroll down on this page, you will see the cloud function pricing. And it says here that the first 2 million invocations per month are actually free. If we scroll a bit further down, then you see that you have this calculator where you can see, you can put in how many PDFs you would like to generate per day. The memory consumption is always going to be 512 megabytes. So if you make 1,000 per day, then probably you will spend less than $1 per month using it. So it's a really good new print server, remote print server that you can add to your Apex instance. So this is running on OCI, right? You need OCI, you need a paid account. Your database, however, doesn't need to be on OCI, doesn't need to be even on Autonomous. So the way this works is if you install Apex 24.1, we use a package called dbms_cloud to communicate with the OCI function. Now, by default, this is already installed if you use Autonomous. However, if you are using an on-premises database, there's this document how you can install that package in your database. You need to have at least a 19C or upwards database, so be aware of that. And then when all that is fine and you have installed or upgraded to Apex 24.1, there's this blog post that my colleague wrote, Rupesh. You can search for it on apexoracle.com/blog. It's called Seamless PDF Integration with Oracle Apex and OCI Document Generator. And because I have limited time today, but this blog post explains in detail each step that you need to take in order to set everything up, right? Configure your OCI and then go into your instance administration and set up your remote print server for your instance. So that's a good starting point. I, for today, have an instance where the configuration is already done. So I can immediately start using the document generator as print server. I thought let's start with the most simple example. Like say you have a new application and this one just has a homepage. It has a classic report which shows the employees. Now, if you do enable print and you select PDF, then default, it will use the native PDF printing we have in Apex. And I'll show you what that looks like. Your PDF will be generated like this, which contains indeed all your information, but many people have requested, I would like a logo here. I want the style to look different. Well, you can do so by using a template. And with Document Generator, you create your template in Word. And I think everybody knows how to use Word. So let's open the one up that I'll be demoing for this example. It is called the employee template. And here you see that I have a nice logo on the top. Here in the bottom, I have a graphic in the footer. I have a title. And the interesting thing, of course, is the table. So I've defined a table in Word. I specified all the columns. And here is where it gets more interesting. So here is what we see is called a tag. And the document generator supports multiple tags. This tag is called the data loop tag. And the data loop reads the JSON that you also pass. And if there's an array, in this case called employee, then it will loop over that to add the rows to this report. So we're looping over each employee, and then we are omitting the name, job, manager, so on and so forth. And when the rows are finished, then we close that loop of the employees. If you want to know more about all these tags that are specific for Document Generator, they are all documented. So you can go to the documentation of Document Generator, and there you will find a section for the Document Generator tags. And here on the right, you'll see all the different tags that are used. So this is, for instance, the loop that I'm now using, where you can loop over an array. And the other is the basic tag where you just use it as a substitution. So I have my app. Let's upload this to my application. We are leveraging the existing functionality of report layouts and report queries. In this case, I already have a query. It's my classic report. So I'll go ahead and upload my report layout. It wants me to give it a name. And it's always based on named columns because this is a template where you need to specify the data that comes into it. And then it will ask you for a docx file, which I can easily upload by dragging and dropping it. And go ahead and create it. Now, to use this in my classic report, I need to make one more change because I told you about that data loop. The array that Apex generates for the JSON needs to have that name employees. And I can specify that name here and then save it. Then I can go to my page where my classic report is. I select it. I go to the printing tab. And there, instead of the default report layout, I'm choosing the new one, right, which is employees. Go ahead and save and rerun that page. And if I now print it, it invokes the document generator on OCI, and it uses JSON. And there I get my nicely formatted new report. So if everything is configured, it's really easy to start using your templates. So that's the basic example. For the rest of the examples, I will use another application that I've prepared. And I call that the Document Generator app. And here you can see what is in the app. So we already talked about the classic report use case. We now also added the support for interactive reports. So you can select a report layout in Page Designer, and then either you download or you subscribe, but both will always use your template and will invoke DocGen. In this case, I will simply download. I click on PDF, and notice now there's no more page width and page size and orientation, because that's all defined in your template, right? In Word, you can just configure what the size of your page is. So just download. And again, the report will be created. Exactly the same. There are several other ways to use it. For instance, declarative printing. Because now in Page Designer, you will see that we have a new process type and a new dynamic action type to print report queries. And report queries is where you define your source for your data. You can use bind variables. You can reference page items. So if I select, for instance, accounting here, and I try to print my department document, then you will see that it only includes information about the department accounting. Department accounting located in New York and has the following employees. This one is quite similar, but it uses a dynamic action to print. And I can go ahead and select an invoice, click on the download button, and there is my invoice. And this is the more real world example where you can see that you can create a UI, a report template in the style that you would like it to be. So you have your invoice, header information, who is this sent to, and then all your items and the totals. So in Page Designer, if you have a look, these new process and dynamic action type are quite simple. You let it trigger on a before header process, for example, and then you can print your report. It's a new type, right? You will find it here between the others, and it has just a few settings. So you specify which report query you want to use. You can override the file name. If you want to use the default one, you can leave it empty, and you can specify how you want to view the file. The same is true for the dynamic action. So I have here a button, and on that button, on click, I want to do two things. First, I want to set the value of P2 file name. So I want to override the default file name. And again, here I'm using the word invoice, and I'm concatenating the actual selected invoice on that page. Then I'm going to print my report. It has the same attributes, but this time it also has items to submit. So the file name and the invoice number are also sent to the server. If you want to have a look at the report queries, what we did here is that you used to be able to just use SQL statements. Now we use the full exec infrastructure. That means local database table or your SQL statement or a REST source or a remote database. I have two sources here. That's the way that report queries always work. So I select information from my invoice. And if we look at the detail, you will see here that I'm using a bind variable. And the other thing I'm doing is I select everything from my invoice items with that same bind variable. Now, if everything is correct, I already have it set up. So my bind variable is there. So I can even test it here from the builder. I can look at the JSON, for example. I go ahead and click download. And here's my information. So I have all my invoice information and I have a second array for all the items. In the future, we would like to make this nested. Right? That's the way you would expect it. Currently, this is the way we do it in 24.1. And there's a test button that works the same. Then for more advanced use cases, we have new APIs. We have an API called Apex Print. And I suggest you go to our documentation. You can write apexoracle.com/doc. And the Apex Print API has several overloads to generate documents and even to upload custom templates to use them. Those are not stored in your shared components. So you can choose one of them. You can look at the example. And the other API we have is called Apex HTTP. And this is the first time we actually have a broad use case download procedure to download blobs or CLOBs. So there's no need for the Apex data export.download anymore. All right, back to this example. So I could invoke one of the existing report queries and download my employee data. But I can also, if you want to, you can create your own JSON and use an existing report layout. So if I do that, and I'll show you real quick in Page Designer that when I'm printing this invoice, I'm really just creating my own JSON. And the way you do that is up to you. But it downloaded and it uses that instead of a report query or a classic report information. So that works all fine. And the last one is where you can upload a custom template. So even if your template is not stored as a report layout, you can still use your own one. For instance, you can give it, I'm using a bind variable in my template. And let's drag and drop it here. Office hours. This will be the template. And I'll send that to document generator. And if all goes well, then this is my last demo for today. It created this nice custom-sized PDF document with the substitution right here. So I think that's a good introduction of what you can do in 24.1, and I'm glad to see we now have the document generator integration.
Thank you, Menno. That's great.
Thank you.
All right, so on to our next section here. That was Menno talking about generating PDF documents using the natively integrated document generator service. For more questions on that, please post to the Oracle Apex forum, apexoracle.com/forum, so that we can discover any of your issues and help you in a timely fashion. Next, we have Ronnie up to speak about the date picker support in faceted search and smart filters. Over to you, Ronnie.
Hi, Jason. Yeah, hello also from my side. Today I want to show you a small enhancement in faceted search, because with Apex 24.1 you can now filter with a date picker your reports and all the regions that supports faceted search. But let us begin how it was before 24.1. We are now in the page designer. I have prepared a small app for you today, and you could also filter in faceted search and smart filters in the past. We are in the page designer, and I show you how you could use this date filtering in the past before 24.1, and then we activate the new feature. I have here a faceted search region and a report that looks like, I have to move this away, that looks like this here. And here I can filter also a date column by using an LOV. I can pick this and use this. What's behind this? Behind this there is an LOV, and this LOV produces data in the canonical date format. So finally, when we filter by this facet, then we use this format. And even when we now use the new date picker feature, we keep this format. So let me enable the date picker. This is very easily done by here. You are in this facet, and in the settings, you just enable this manual entry. And when we refresh now our app, then we can here also add manual dates. Existing applications still work, so you can very easily keep your LOV-based date filters, but now you can also manual filter. You can say, okay, I just want to have this range with this from, but you can also say, okay, I want to see a time range here between, and then you can filter it. What's behind that? Let me shortly switch into JavaScript. You don't have to use JavaScript when you use this feature. It's just for demonstrating what's behind the scenes. And as you can see in the session state of the item, we see our two LOV-based filters, and we see also now our manually filters. And what does this say to us? You can still use your links to set the date picker and your LOV. Let me show this to you. I just want to activate two buttons that I have prepared for this session. And when we now say, hey, let's set arrange facets with this LOV, then the LOV is set. But we can also set the date picker. And here you can see you can still use a link to set your facets with your existing links are still working because we still use this canonical date format. But this canonical date format is not really good for presentation. So we added also a formatting for these date pickers. So when we go back into the page designer on our facet, then we have now here a format mask. And we can add a format mask. Let's pick up this one here. And then your dates that you see are formatted with this date for mask. This is just for presentation. In the background, we still use the canonical date format, so all existing applications can easily activate this new feature and does not break. And it makes it also much more easier with this canonical date format when you create links and all that stuff. And that's why we handle it in this case this way with this canonical date formats and the format mask for presentation. If you have a date format that is not supported, like, for example, this one here, then you will get an error in the page designer. So you can only set date format masks that are supported by the date picker and also by date.js. And you do not only have this date picker for range facets, you can also have this date pickers for the input facet. Let's choose here the end date for filtering and say, okay, we have an input field. We want to have this flexible operators. And now we choose here date. We can also set there this format mask. Let me pick up this one here. And then you can also use this new date picker filtering in faceted search when you use the input facets. Let me show this, or let me use this one. Okay, and then you can still filter here with this input facet, but now with dates. And this was not possible before. Before 24.1, you could really only use dates with this range facet with these LOEs. For the input filters, it was not possible. The good thing is that this also works in smart filters. As you know, it's every feature that we have in faceted search is always possible in smart filters. Let me show it to you. When we have here our smart filter region, then you can easily use this filter that we had now seen for faceted search here for smart filters. And now it's filtered. And also these ranges are available here. So let me easily pick a range. And as you can see, even here in smart filters, you still have this date formatting. We still use in the background the canonical date format. So your date format is just for presentation. All existing applications still work. You can easily just enable this new feature by manual filtering with the date picker. Yeah, that was it from my side. Short reminder, if you want to download here my demo app, then you can go the normal way. You can Google me, and then you found my sample application. And this application is linked since 10 minutes in my sample application under public presentations. And there you can download this app that I have showed here with supporting objects and all that stuff. Okay, that was it from my side.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Yep.
So that was Ronnie talking about date picker support in faceted search and smart filters. Next up is Carsten to talk about REST source infrastructure, support nested JSON responses. Over to you, Carsten.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the last part of the office hours for 24.1. We will talk a little bit about REST data sources and what happened in 24.1. My name is Carsten Czarski, and we have REST data sources for 6 years now. Well, it was initially introduced with Apex 18.1 back in 2018, and almost every release had an improvement here, an extension there. So It evolved quite a bit over time, and 24.1 is another example where we did an evolvement of REST data sources to actual needs. And this time we had a look into how to process the responses which are coming back from the REST data sources. And as Ronnie did before, let me also give you a little insight on how it looked before 23.1. And I have created a REST data source on a REST API which I prepared, and it's this one, right? So this is a REST API which I prepared myself. It contains, or let's say this is a REST API which returns purchase orders, right? And this is just some generated data which returns a purchase order and a list of purchase orders, right? We have 1, 2, 3, and so on. And each purchase order has the data which is there only once, so the requester, the cost center, shipping instructions. But typically for a purchase order, you have many line items, right? So, and let's say such a REST data source, I would like to consume that in Apex. Okay, let's have a look. I created that already. So here is the purchase orders 23.2. Right, and it's already created. It has the URL and it has the data profile. Many of you probably worked with REST data sources before. And as you know, the REST data source contains all the metadata about our external REST API, and the data profile contains the information how to extract rows and columns from that JSON response. And here we see all the attributes, right? So, and if I now would like to use that REST data source, right, let me log in. And then we can see nothing. We can see a report, right? And here again, I see the requester, the cost center, and I see the line items as JSON, right? And this is what our situation in 23.2 and before, of course, right? And always since REST data sources were introduced, one of the limitations was Apex expects a flat response, right? So we can extract every attribute, which is there only once for each row. The line items are different. This is nested, right? We have multiple line items for each row. And this, so far, was a limitation. So one option you could deal with that is just to expose that as JSON and then apply some fancy JavaScript to your page, right, to deal with that. There are a few other tricks, right, to just get the first or just get the first and the second positions. But at the end of the day, Apex didn't allow you to access that line items array fully, right? And this will change with 24.1. So let's try that out. Let me copy the URL and let's recreate the REST data source now with the new features in mind. Right? And the wizard to create a REST data source is more or less unchanged, right? So let me call this purchase orders 24.1. I'm providing the URL endpoint and I'm clicking next. So the remote server, right, which allows me to separate the endpoint URL into a server and a service specific part. It's good for deployment from development to test to production. And then we have the pagination settings. In this example, I don't use pagination, but all that stuff works transparently with the new feature as well. Right? Authentication. This is just a demonstration example from me, so it doesn't require authentication. And let me click Discover. So, and this pretty much also, it looks almost the same as before, right? Almost boring, but let's have a look. Something must have happened. And we can already see, and if you watched closely, if you really paid attention, you might have seen, well, let me show you again. It was quick, right? Very quick look into the 23.2 example, right? Have a look at the data profile, right? And let's go back to the 24.1 example. Let's have a look at the data profile. There is a difference, right? It's more columns. Let's have a look. So we can see that there is now a parent column, right? We again see all that column information, but there is a parent column, and obviously, at least that's how it looks like, The data profile represents the hierarchy in the JSON. So we have now individual columns for the line items, right? And you have a parent column. And that example even has one more nested array, and that was the, what is that? Shipping instructions phone, I believe, right? And that is also an array. Let's double check. Yeah, indeed, we have an array here, right? So, okay, so what is new in Apex? So the data profile appears to now contain information about the hierarchy. Okay, we want to put that to use. Let's try again. Let's create an interactive report. Oh, let's just update that page. Right. So, and I will just remove that one. Let me. So, okay, create a region. Let's again do an interactive report. And this is purchase orders. And now I'm picking the REST data source. Right. And now we see a new bit. Right. And this is the array column. Right. So this is new. We can just keep that with none. And we see pretty much the same as we saw before. Right. We have the, well, let's have a look. It should be almost unchanged. Right. Again, we see the nested array in JSON format if you want that. However, we would like to drill into that, right? I would like to get the individual columns for each line item. So let's pick the array column, and we can see columns are changing, right? And let me run this again. And what you can now see is that we get, this is interesting. Before that, we got one row per purchase order. Now we get one row per line item per purchase order, right? So if your REST API returns 1,000 purchase orders with, in summary, let's say 50 line items per purchase order, you would get 50,000 rows here, right? And let's clean up a little bit. Let's get rid of all that stuff here. And the PO number left and the reference and the user goes away. Well, let's keep that. Special instructions, item number, unit price description. So just rearrange the columns a bit. And now we have a nice interactive report showing me what the information about the line items. And of course, all the interactive report filters do work. So I can go with a filter here, and I can say the unit price, and let me show the expensive stuff which people order. I'm not even sure whether there is something with more than 30. No, there isn't. But there was something with more than 20. Right? So all the filtering, the highlighting, all that works seamlessly with nested array columns. And if you have an array nested in an array, right, you would see all that information. So you would see more in the hierarchy here. So if there was, if the line items contained again an array with whatever offerings or so, we would see that hierarchy reflected here. And you can, in your component, you can always pick the right hierarchy level, and the component will then work with the data from that hierarchy level. Okay, what else is there to say, right? Let's, so whether you have a classic report or an interactive report or an interactive grid or a chart, they all work the same, right? So I wouldn't show too much about this. It's really, it doesn't make a difference whether you create a card region, faceted search, or whatever, right? It's always the same. You pick the REST data source, you pick the array column, and then Apex will make sure to pick you the right data. We might have a look into the REST data source itself. And so one interesting piece would be the synchronization we might talk about. And here is my new REST data source. and let's try to synchronize the data. Right, and I don't have anything, and I would like to synchronize the line items. Right, so let me append a local, and this is important, right? When you create a synchronization, you need to pick the array column, so like this, right? And let me save that. Of course, my line items table does not exist yet. So, and here we see that the columns from a line items table are created on the line item level. I can create a table, and this is a normal purchase order now. Let me run synchronization. Should be quick. There we are. And if we now look into SQL Workshop, then we can see the data of that table again at the line item level. But the interesting bit is, for the synchronization, you have to decide, right? The synchronization is done on either the root or one of the hierarchy levels. You can't have multiple synchronizations on different hierarchy levels into different tables. So if you want that, of course you can have it. You need to copy the REST data source then and configure the synchronization on the different hierarchy levels. But for one REST data source, there is one synchronization, and you have to pick the hierarchy level you need, right? If you need more, copy the REST data sources. Another piece, and this is also maybe even a refresher about REST data sources, it's a new aspect and an old aspect, but maybe not everybody's aware. So let me just talk a bit about it, right? So again, let's have a look into the data profile. And when I look at what columns we have, right, I can see there's a unit price and a quantity, but there is no, I would like to see the multiplication, right? Unit price by quantity. I would like to see the amount for that line item position. That would be nice, right? And we have a feature in Apex since the very first day in REST data sources, and some of you might know it. Other ones will see it now. So I can add SQL expression columns, right? So let me add a new column to the data profile. Right, and let me call that line item amount. And this is important, I will get to that in a minute. The column type is a SQL expression, right? So, and this is possible since day one in REST data sources. You can extend the data profile with your own computations. And this was part unit price by quantity. And then this wouldn't work right now because a derived column, a SQL expression column, yeah, again, there is a question, right? Which hierarchy level should this work on, right? On the root level, this can't work because on the root level, those two columns are not available. We need to pick the correct parent column. And now we can see determine the data type. So this is valid, right? And I call it line item amount. Let me create. And then go back to our interactive report, right? And then do a synchronize columns. Actually, I don't need all that stuff, right? I only want to have that line item amount. Let's see whether it worked. Don't let the interactive report fool you. You added a column, but you used the interactive report before. The column is not displayed initially. And yes, you want to have this. Other people might be using that report right in time, and you don't want to see them every experiment you are doing in live time. So the column is not visible right now. We want this. Right, so and here is now the line item amount, right? I get data from the REST data source, and within the nested hierarchy, right, we are even doing a calculation, right? And what we now can do, we can now start playing with stuff. Let me get rid of that filters. So let me, so what do we have? We have a PO number. We have the line item amount for each. Yeah, so at the end of the day, let's do an Now I would like to do an aggregation, please. New aggregation, and this is the line item amount. Right, yeah, this only shows up at the very bottom, but I'm not done yet. I would like to do a control break on the PO number. And there we are, right? So this is not available from the REST data from the REST API as such, but on the fly, we are not only displaying the data, we are also computing additional information and we are aggregating it up. This works so nice because that demo API returns all the data at once. Of course, be careful with these aggregations. If your REST API operates on hundreds of thousands of rows and it returns the data in pages, so such an aggregation might then backfire and you rather want to copy the data to a local table before. Right, but basically, as you can see, we can really work on that data as it was just a local table, right? And that was always, or is still always, the goal of a REST data source. We want to be able to work with REST APIs, with the data from REST APIs in Apex, as it was a plain table, right? And now we can do this on different hierarchy levels even. I put together that stuff, or so you don't need to write everything down. I did that for you in advance. So a few weeks ago, we put together a blog posting, and you can see it's even the same example, right? So you should recognize it. You've now seen the effect, right? And here you see everything written down if you want to do it on your own, right? So this, you've seen all this already, right? And here is, that's interesting, and I should definitely show that first, right? So it gets a bit technical now, but let's do that. Let's do at least have, we are here in office hours. We want to lift the trunk, right? And have a look into how the engine works, right? So, and as you might know, the first thing you're always doing if you want to see how stuff works is turn on debug. So, and info debug is totally sufficient, right? And let me turn off the control break, right? And let me also remove the aggregation. This just adds up to debug information, and we want to concentrate on the essentials, right? So let me get rid of that one. And let's now review what we have. So this is debug output. So don't worry, we don't work ourselves through all of that, right? There are a few key points in that debug output, and let's really focus on that. So I will scroll a bit now, but this is all not important, right? Oh, it's not even that much. So first thing is, in a REST data source, we have the actual GET request to the REST API. Oh, I did a GET request to a HTTPS, Apex Oracle.com, blah, 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 blah. And then it got the JSON back. And then this is the actual query, and that is unchanged since 2018. Apex really leverages the Oracle database when it's about parsing that JSON, making that information available as rows and columns. From day one, Apex relies on the JSON capabilities in the Oracle database, which also evolved very well over the last few years. And the JSON table function is the key bit here, right? JSON table is a function in the database which turns JSON into rows and columns. So what's new in 24.1? How do we break up that hierarchy? And again, it's using database functionality. I just need to find it. And the key bit is here, right? So that is a part of, it's just two innocent words, right? But a lot of functionality behind this, because the data with this clause, the database, the JSON table function drills into the hierarchy and makes every row of the nested object available as a result row. And if you have deeper nested arrays, you might see multiple of these nested path clauses being added to the JSON. The cool bit about this is you don't have to worry about all this, right? Apex does it for you. We are generating all that complexity, but how is it done, right? It's really, and that is what Apex does since it sees the light of day back in 2004. It's a fundamental piece of Apex. Whenever we do something, right, we use the database. The database can do something with data, and the database can do things well with data. Apex lets the database do the job, right? And we are doing the very same thing here, right? We are leveraging the database to make this stuff happen, right? Okay, I think we should reserve the last few minutes for a few questions and answers. If we have, that's all I have. I hope you like it, and go ahead, try out the blog posting and try the feature out.
That's amazing, Carsten. Thank you so much. We actually do have a question that was asked twice in a different way. Actually, if you can go back to sharing your screen with that one report, one question was that I think we can answer here in a short period of time was, can you make any of these REST column results a link? One of the users was saying they created a report like this, and when they did that, it was a link. And then when they made it when they made that REST column a link, it then changed it to plain text. So they weren't able to preserve it being a link. Is that a known issue, or is there a simple workaround for that?
Yeah, so an interactive report, it might be a known issue. The details are important here. I hate to say this, right? But at the end of the day, good old business administrators' words, it depends. An interactive report, when you do synchronized columns, right, or you're changing stuff here, right, then Apex compares the columns and data types of the columns before and after the change, right? And if there is a difference, Page Designer doesn't assume that to be the same column anymore, right? And then the column is reset. I hate to say it, but it's simply reset. So one different letter. So there might be a hash behind that, not be there in the new. So you're changing stuff, and the column, just one character is different. Or the data type. Oh, it was a number. Now it's a varchar, right? Apex, don't know. It's whether this is really the same column, so it resets. So in order to preserve things, really the column has to be identical in the meaning of interactive report. So same name, same data type, right? If that is the case and it still happens, I will need to look into this. But basically, that's the minimum requirement, right? If there is some difference, right, it's expected that that stuff is reset, right? And you have to recreate the link.
All right. So that was, thank you, Carsten. That was Carsten talking about REST source infrastructure support and nested JSON responses. So again, if you still need help with understanding any of these things, or you're playing with some of the downloaded apps or the sample apps and you run into trouble, please feel free to create a new post on apex.oracle.com/forum. That is your community forum. We all get notifications of those new posts being made, and we will make our efforts to try to review that and get you an answer as quick as possible. And if we're not able to, then maybe somebody else in the community has had the same trouble and they've been able to solve it, and they're going to share their answer there in the community forum. If you do have a new enhancement request for Apex in general, that's where the Ideas app comes in. So apex.oracle.com/ideas is where you should submit those. Do we have any other questions relevant to the content presented today? Please, it's now your opportunity to put them in the Q&A section. We got the team here standing by ready to answer your questions. I know there's a lot of other questions you want to ask, but truly the best place for that right now is on the forum. All right. No new questions have come in, Carsten. Thank you, Menno. Thank you, Ronnie, everyone, and the whole panel on the call today. Really appreciate you being there. And every one of you customers and community members, we certainly appreciate you coming and joining these office hours. And we look forward to seeing you again. The next scheduled office hours coming up, I think next month. And we're going to try to do them every month until the next release of the new release of Apex. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a great day and great end of your week. Bye.